of the rosters of these trainers, and Wolfe leading out with Regieleki and Glastier, two of those new faces. What a delight to see them out in the action as Glastier and Grimmsnarl are being led out for Donald. And you know, two of these Glastrier Pokemon out at the moment, both of them like Trick Room environments, and depending on how they have been trained, obviously we're going to have to find out which one has the speed advantage depending on what the speed of the environment is. And Regieleki is just so happy to be here, Lee.
Yeah, and it's interesting how both players approach his first turn. You know, we commonly see Regieleki support its partnering Pokemon with things like Light Screen and Reflect, which is exactly what you would see something like the Grimmsnarl and what we saw it do for Donald in yesterday's match. So both players going with the same idea, just a little different approach. And the Regieleki probably in a bit more of an awkward position than the Grimmsnarl here, more likely to get knocked out, but we still don't know the item on that Regieleki on Wolf's side of the field, so it may have something like the Focus Sash, which will allow a little bit of room to support his own Glastrier, and it's going to be the battle of the Glastriers going into this first turn.
Yeah, well, Glastrier on Donald's side going to be straight away Dynamaxing in this match and going for the Reflect with the Grimmsnarl, so just boosting up the defenses on Donald's side of the field, wants to make sure that there is a little bit more protected as Regieleki pivots out, going for that Volt Switch. And this does allow Wolfe the opportunity to bring a Pokemon in from the back that might be able to better support the Glastrier here in this environment. We know that the Reflect is up on the field, maybe bringing in something like a Special Attacker could be dealing some good damage, or indeed the Dusclops, I was about to say. That's who is arriving on the field to be able to obviously apply some pressure with its ability, but potentially set up that Trick Room as well. Glastrier going to go for the close combat on Wolf's side, taking the Glastrier that's Dynamax down to below 50%. Of course, the risk here for Wolfe, though, is the defenses of his own Glastrier has been reduced, as Glastrier on Donald's side going for that Max Quake. Going to target down into the Dusclops that has just joined the field, going to be able to take that much better than the Regieleki would have. But again, Donald trying to boost up defenses has now got a special defense boost on the Glastrier and the Grimmsnarl. So potentially as we're going into the match, these are things that Wolfe needs to consider.
Yeah, and I think what Donald is going to have to do now is really start to make maximize his turns with this Glastrier on his side of the field. He has decided to Dynamax at turn 1, so he needs to start getting a return on it. And how Wolfe is playing right now, the Glastrier is likely to switch out on his side of the field, like you mentioned with that close combat. It was a really nice play, getting some big damage off into the Dynamax Glastrier on Donald's side, but at the same time those defense drops are really going to make it very vulnerable going into this next turn, potentially in range of a knockout. And it's something you probably, if you're Wolfe, you want to get off the field, reset those drops and maybe reposition with something next to it. So it's about whether or not Donald can read into that and maybe take advantage of it, or if he goes for a different route.
Yeah, I like this play here by Wolfe, bringing the Tapu Fini into the action, resetting the drops on the Glastrier, setting the Misty Surge out on the field. And of course, the other thing you have to be concerned about if you're Wolfe is you don't necessarily want to set up Trick Room while Donald's Glastrier is still in the action. You want to try and remove it potentially before going for that Trick Room. Light Screen going to come up here from the Grimmsnarl, again keeping the defensive really strong as Glastrier goes for that Max Hailstorm. It is going to go down into the Dusclops, going to do a huge chunk of damage, not enough to be able to pick up the KO though. Of course, the residual damage from that hail is going to make the HP on the Dusclops dwindle even further, but it should still be able to survive out the turn as Dusclops goes for a haze. Haven't seen this in a long time here, Lee. Just going to be able to remove all of those stat boosts that Donald has worked so hard to build up with the max moves coming out from the Glastrier.
Yeah, it's an interesting option on the Dusclops, and interesting that Wolfe doesn't want to go for that Trick Room here. He had a great opportunity to go for it, and then the next turn maybe go for the haze, but obviously opting not to go down that route. Now he gets the Tapu Fini onto the field, and that's extremely good for him because he's removed that special defense boost that the Glastrier had just obtained with that Max Quake the previous turn. Tapu Fini in a nice position here where it can pressure the Grimmsnarl. It can even go for a Calm Mind if it wishes here to get boosted up, and then set himself up for a nice position after the Dynamax turns ends on this Glastrier to start Dynamaxing and do some damage of his own.
Tapu Fini going for the Dazzling Gleam, just getting a little bit of split chip damage against both of Donald's Pokemon. He's going to have to take a Spirit Break, however, the special attack will be dropping down. So unless Dusclops is able to survive and go for another haze, that is still going to be in effect at the end of the turn, but Dusclops not going to be able to be as lucky, unfortunately. The Max Quake coming in from the Glastrier going to be able to pick up the KO. Special defense boosts are going to be reset on the field for Donald, and of course the Chilling Neigh ability will activate as well, so the Glastrier is going to be even more threatening going into this next turn with its attack boost. The one thing you have to watch out for though if you're Donald is the HP is dwindling on that Glastrier, and you know, Dynamax coming to an end, it's going to be sitting a little bit vulnerable, particularly outside of this Trick Room environment.
Definitely outside of the Trick Room, it's not its most favoured environment at all, and I think Wolfe's really played this quite well. May have a faster Glastrier, it depends who's got the faster one, you know, not opting for the Trick Room here. There might be some sort of more speed in one than the other, so it'll be interesting to see which Glastrier is faster here, but definitely the one on Donald's side of the field in a little bit of an awkward position now, definitely in knockout range from probably both the Tapu Fini and the Glastrier, deciding whatever moves they want to go for, even though they've got that screen support from the Grimmsnarl. The Grimmsnarl on Donald's side has been allowed to just kind of freely do it at once here, so firing off the Spirit Breaks into the Tapu Fini is a nice way to kind of mitigate it, but it's a nice way for Wolfe to kind of keep that Grimmsnarl busy while he maybe does something else. But we see that Dusclops come in for Donald as he does preserve that Glastrier for later on in this game.
Yeah, Glastrier just hanging out in the back for later. Spirit Break going to connect into that Tapu Fini once again, lowering the special attack even further as these turns do progress, as Glastrier goes for the high horsepower. Coming in fresh from Wolfe's side, you know, doesn't have the drops that it had previously. Life Orb obviously on there as well, going to be dealing that extra little bit of damage, but Dusclops just so bulky, able to easily take that, as the Hail Chip as well is going to deal its damage. But I think it's an interesting position for Donald here now. He can potentially try and get that Trick Room up and have the Glastrier in the back sitting a little bit happier if it rejoins the field.
Yeah, but then when you are setting the Trick Room up for your own Glastrier, but you're kind of in effect setting it up for your opponent as well, because the problem is setting the Trick Room up, even if Wolfe's Glastrier is a little bit faster than yours, he's still got access to his Dynamax, and that could be where the issue lies, and maybe might put Donald off. But if it feels like it's his only route to go down here, then he'll have to try and get that set up on this turn.
That is true. Forgot that Wolfe had access still to that Dynamax. You know, keeping it late game can be so critical in so many strategies. You still have access sort of towards the end of a game to get that extra HP, those extra KOs that sometimes you really need to dig deep to achieve, and Dynamax allows you to be able to achieve that with ease. Grimmsnarl going to go for the Sucker Punch. Of course, Glastrier easily going to be able to take that, and we'll follow up with a Max Knuckle. So going to target down into that Grimmsnarl, pick up the KO, and I really like this play here by Wolfe, getting the attack boost from the Max Knuckle, but also Chilling Neigh, of course, going to activate and boost up as well. Regieleki, having joined the field relatively safely, is of course going to be able to apply pressure as well, as long as Trick Room doesn't come off here from the Dusclops. If it does, this is an environment that Regielecki's not going to be happy to be in at all, and that's actually what Donald has gone for here. So Trick Room is in effect, the Glastrier on Wolfe's side going to be very happy with that.
Yeah, extremely happy with that. But you do wonder as well, we've already seen Haze on one Dusclops, so we're going to see it on another Dusclops. And that's potentially something that could disrupt Wolfe's Glastrier. But at the same time, it will come down to, you know, that I was about to say what Donald brings in to make the most of this Trick Room, and it is going to be the Glastrier on his end. Now, the problem is right here, it can do some damage to Wolfe's opposing Glastrier, of course, but at the same time, it's so low health itself, it's really going to get knocked out if it takes a single attack from the Regieleki or the Glastrier. The decisions are really split here, and I don't know if you can really afford to leave either of these Pokemon alone, and we'll set up a really dominant, like a very dangerous board position here, and it's kind of splitting your attention here. Which side do you go for? Do you go for the Glastrier that's a Dynamax, prevent those Chilling Neighs, which might not be a bad idea, and if you do have something like Haze here with the Dusclops, that's spending a turn where you're not getting any damage off, and you're kind of then relying on your own Glastrier to do as much damage as possible if it is slow, which we don't know yet.
Well, Wolfe preserving the precious Regieleki, you know, wanting to get it out of there, doesn't want it to take any damage, maybe keeping it for later in the game. And oh, you called it there, Lee. If there's a Haze on one Dusclops, there's gonna be on the other one as well, eliminating those stat boosts that the Glastrier had previously. Tapu Fini gonna take the high horsepower that was aiming for that Regieleki. It will of course sacrifice itself, and Glastrier getting that Chilling Neigh ability activated once again. So Donald able to restore the boost that he had previously, but obviously got reset when he switched out the Glastrier, as Wolfe's Glastrier able to go for that Max Knuckle. Gonna target down into the Glastrier of Donald's side, of course pick up the KO, and once again on Wolfe's side we're gonna see that combination of Chilling Neigh with the Max Knuckle, putting it at +2 attack. Of course Donald has the option to go for another Haze in that next turn and just remove that from play, but if you're doing that, then essentially your Dusclops isn't going for any damage. You know, it's not going for any potential Nightshades and picking up 50 HP damage there. It does of course leave Donald free to bring in his last remaining Pokemon, however.
Yeah, he's got one more Pokemon in the back to bring in, and I'm curious to see what it is, to see if it can have any sort of impact in this game, because at the moment, like you said, you're kind of tied up with the Dusclops having to go for the haze if you're on the field. You can't allow this Glastrier to get powered up like it is doing. You need to keep it in check, so you need to spend that time really going for the haze. If you don't, then it's going to be a very quick end game here. So I think that's the one issue that Donald's looking at right now. And also with the Regieleki coming onto the field, the problem is, see, if the Trick Room ends, then Tapu Fini is very, very threatened by the Regieleki. So you really want to try and prioritize taking down the Regieleki here if you are Donald, to remove it as a threat, and then hope to get through the Trick Room turns, hope to get through the Dynamax turns with the Glastrier, and then have the Tapu Fini in good enough shape to potentially deal with it in the late game.
Exactly, lots of things to consider for our Pokemon trainers here. Haze coming up once again from the Dusclops, so this will be a neutral attacking Max Quake from the Glastrier. Going to go into that Tapu Fini that's easily going to be able to take it, and of course special defense is going to go up on Wolf's side of the field. That's something Tapu Fini does not want to see, as it still has yet to move. Going for the Calm Mind, however, so boosting up its special attack and its special defense. Special defense could come in really pivotal here, particularly when stacked up with something like the Light Screen against that Regieleki that has been able to survive the turn, but actually goes for a Light Screen of its own. So Wolf also making sure that the defenses are set up on his side of the field, getting that special defense boost with the Max Quake as well. And this is now where Dusclops potentially doesn't want to be able to go for the haze.
Yeah, the Calm Mind there from your partnering Pokemon kind of is a big conflict here. You don't want to go for that. You don't want to reduce or waste the turn that you've just spent Calm Minding. Now you can actually throw out some offensive attacks. You can go for maybe a Nightshade or another attack and utilize the Tapu Fini. Now the Glastrier isn't boosted in attack, so Donald's done well at kind of mitigating those chilling nays that we've seen activate so far. And if he can take down the Regieleki here, this will be a big turn for him.
Well, going for that Pain Split, going to reduce Regieleki's health to about a quarter. Tapu Fini going to follow up with a Moonblast. Of course, it is at +1 special attack, but there are so many special defense boosts up on Wolf's side of the field. Volt Switch going to connect into that Tapu Fini. Going to be not able to pick up the KO again thanks to the defenses, and Tapu Fini going to be able to regain a little bit of HP with the leftovers. But of course, the Volt Switch not going to be taking Regieleki off the battlefield, as Wolf is only down to his last 2 remaining Pokemon. Yeah,
and it's very difficult. You would think that the Calm Mind boost obviously helping out the Tapu Fini massively there against the Regieleki, but also the special defense boost on Wolf's side of the field, making it difficult to take down what would normally be a very fragile Pokemon in Regieleki, taking that Moonblast +1 Moonblast quite comfortably there. So I think the key is for Wolf to try and utilize the Glastrier to deal with maybe the speed control option here on the field, and try and remove the Dusclops as soon as possible, and then you can concentrate down into the Tapu Fini with just your Regieleki and Glastrier, and maybe between the two of them it might be enough to deal with it.
Oh, Regieleki just able to hang on following that Nightshade, just had a couple of HP points remaining. Dusclops this time going to be able to take the Volt Switch with ease, and Tapu Fini, protecting herself from the high horsepower, doesn't want to take any additional damage, and being able to regain a little bit of HP with something like the leftovers is going to help it out. But as you saw, Trick Room ends now, and this is Regieleki's favourite environment to be in. But just due to the defenses on Donald's side, I don't think it's going to be enough with just a Volt Switch to pick up a KO against that Tapu Fini.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be, and I don't know. This is what it will come down to, whether or not Regieleki and Glastrier double up into the Tapu Fini can do enough damage, and then even then, is the Glastrier in a position where it can deal with the Dusclops? It's not got the boosters it really needed to get earlier on in this match with the Dynamax turns to actually take advantage of that power that it can potentially have.
Well, Tapu Fini able to survive, does go for a Muddy Water, not going to be able to pick up the KO against Regieleki though, as it dodges out of the way, connects onto the Glastrier, no accuracy drops though, and Tapu Fini will fall victim to the double up with the high horsepower following in from the Glastrier, that of course is going to get the Chilling Neigh ability activated as well. But what has this Dusclops gone for, I wonder, because that could easily change things up. Goes for the Trick Room, so puts itself back into the environment it likes to be in, can now potentially go for some Nightshades and pick up a KO here or there.
I think if we didn't see the Trick Room there, I think Wolf could probably lock this one up pretty quickly, especially after that Chilling Neigh boost. But by setting the Trick Room up, kind of foreseeing that the Tapu Fini would be the target, the double target there from Wolf, and putting yourself in a position where you can come back into this match and really take advantage of how slow Dusclops is, and maybe utilize something like Nightshade to close this game out, it will cause Wolf some issues going forward. I think you've got it comes down to a lot of 50-50s here, and whether or not you get the targeting right if you're Wolfe, because otherwise Nightshade's going to pick up the knockout pretty easily onto Regieleki, and it's going to be very touch and go whether it'll be able to get the knockout onto Glastrier as well.
Well, Dusclops going for that Nightshade. It has decided to target down the Regieleki. We've seen previously Wolfe obviously reveal the Protect there on that Glastrier, so maybe just trying to make a call there, but Glastrier going to go for that Icicle Crash. Does manage to connect onto the Dusclops, does do a huge chunk of damage, but not enough to be able to pick up the KO. Glastrier, of course, going to damage itself with that Life Orb recoil, and I think, you know, that Glastrier now sitting in a position where I think a Nightshade's going to be able to pick up the KO, Lee.
Yeah, a little bit of a double-edged sword with that life or low recoil damage there, because it's definitely put it in range of a Nightshade now from this Dusclops, and we know that Dusclops being the slow Pokemon, I think what Wolfe needs to do now is trying to protect his way out of this Trick Room, and that is a big ask. Obviously, the chances of continuous simultaneous protects in a row are reduced every time you use it, so it's going to be very difficult, but not unheard of, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, the Glastrier looking like it's kind of on its last legs now, as Donald put himself in an incredible position with that Trick Room earlier on. We do see the double protect though, so there is a chance.
Hey, he gets 2 in a row, but I think he's going to need more than 2 to be able to combat this Dusclops. You know, Dusclops able to just keep blocking. You see Donald not even hesitating at this stage, going for those Nightshades. Wolfe going for the Protect, doesn't get it this time on the Glastrier. Dusclops going for the Nightshade. Of course, it is able to connect straight onto Glastrier and manages to pick up the KO. Meaning Donald will be leading this set 1-0 at this stage, and what was quite an intense showdown there towards the end, you know, with the Trick Room going on and Glastier's on both sides really wanting to benefit from it. Stats being boosted up on one side, then hey, Dusclops negating it. So many factors were changing, and it really was quite a difficult game to kind of keep up with. And if you're the competitors, you need to make sure that you're staying focused on not only the boost that your opponent has got, whether it's with screens, whether it's with stat boost from max moves, and also your own as well. You need to make sure that those moves that you're going to be taking, that you're prepared and able to take them without getting a KO.
Yeah, and both players seem to mitigate the opposing Glastrier very well in that match, and it really came down to, I think, the end game, where Donald had an idea probably in his mind, thinking, I'm going to make sure that the Tapu Fini did very well in kind of making it a big threatening target with that Calm Mind. Then, you know, with the Trick Room ending, the Regieleki wasn't doing enough, the Glastrier in an awkward position, and Regieleki very close to being knocked out, but that Trick Room that the Dusclops managed to secure as a kind of sacrifice these Tapu Fini to get that Trick Room up, which was just enough there. And I think the haze from both sides of the field was very, very important, and that's one of the ways, a very good way to stop these Ultra Beasts. And obviously the Glastrier, what we saw there with those chilling near boosts, it can become furious and very difficult to deal with if you can't keep them in check, and that move alone keeps everything in check and keeps everything nice and back to normal again. So yeah, I think both players did very well. It was very close at the end, could have been very different. I think, you know, the Life Orb Icicle Crash was very close to picking up that knockout onto the Dusclops, but I mean, Dusclops just again showing why it's such a good consistent Pokemon, which, you know, time and time again players are going back to use as their consistent Trick Room Pokemon, because it not only offers that reliable setup of speed control, but it constantly and is able, it always surprises me. I know how bulky it is, but it still surprises me when I see it sit there and just it's so small and it just takes attacks so well. It's amazing.
Yeah, so many defensive Pokemon out there at the moment, and I'm certainly feeling boosted up by the intensity of that match. Let's jump into game 2 and see what our Pokemon trainers are going to be able to do to adapt into the next part of this set. Remember, they are fighting out for a place in the global finals. We're still here in the North America region finals here. It's going to be my favorite, Regieleki, jumping out for Wolfe, paired up with the Kartana, and Donald deciding to bring Lee a little bit of joy with his favorite of like Galarian Moltres, paired up with the Grimmsnarl. So sort of a double dark combination from Donald here, going to be able to apply some pressure again with that Grimmsnarl, being able to set up the screens and play that kind of protective nature. Wolfe getting the Kartana in on out of there, wants to protect it for later on, and gets the Dusclops here on the field. Maybe Wolfe wants to start getting his Pokemon into a position where he can set that Trick Room up to help out a potential Glastrier in the back. Grimmsnarl going for that protect, wanting to make sure the defenses are high up on the field. Regieleki going to counter with a light screen, so raising the special defense in the face of the Pokemon that Donald's got here, as Moltres goes for that nasty plot, something that we did see yesterday, and it's now going to be in a really formidable situation. You know, Donald now in a perfect opportunity where he could potentially Dynamax this turn.
Yeah, and I think the light screen there from the Regieleki on Wolfe's end really, really nice to kind of mitigate potentially what was going to come out as in a nasty plot from that Moltres. Now he's in a position to probably take maybe a max move from that Moltres. It's going to be very close whether or not he is able to, but he does still pressure with the Regieleki. But are you put off a little bit by going into the Moltres with your Regieleki because of a potential weakness policy there? If you do go for that and it does activate a weakness policy, then Dusclops is not going to be sticking around on the field like we saw how well Dusclops did in that first game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Wolfe here, you might want to be able to pivot out with your Regieleki so that your Dusclops can safely set up that Trick Room, but instead going straight for the Reflect here, wanting to make sure that the time Regieleki spends on the field is put into effort. It is going to be the Max Darkness coming out from the Moltres, though, into the Dusclops at +2, not able to pick up the KO, but does go a huge way to trying to achieve it, though. Regieleki and the Dusclops' special defense will be dropping, so that's going to be sitting a little bit vulnerable going into this next turn, as Grimmsnarl actually follows up with the Spirit Break, and it is not enough to pick up a KO against that Dusclops. Dusclops able to hang on and go for that Trick Room. So Wolfe has got the speed tier the way that he wants it. That Regieleki, though, I think is going to want to get out of there for a Glastria.
Definitely, and I think it's difficult if you're Wolfe to switch out the Regieleki right now, because you kind of know if you're Donald it's a slot you can target quite happily into, but then you can't leave the Dusclops alone either, because potentially there could be Pain Split there, which could then allow it back into the game. And when it's in such an awkward position right now, the Max Darkness as well, lowering the special defense on the Regieleki may put it in range for, it's not going to put it in range for a Spirit Break, but you'll be able to do a lot of damage there. The Haze coming out though, which is a nice option there to reduce all the attack boosts and stat drops that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think that's really good of the Dusclops there, just removing the stat drops that have happened down the field, making that Moltres a lot less threatening. Will, unfortunately, of course, still be KO'd from the Max Darkness, but this does give Wolfe the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon from the back that's going to really benefit from this Trick Room environment. Of course, as well, making that Moltres a little less scary just does enable him to be able to pick up some really good damage. Going for the Volt Switch into the Grimmsnarl, like you mentioned earlier, Lee, doesn't want to potentially set off a weakness policy on that Moltres, particularly as there's no more hazing Dusclops on the field to remove those boosts.
Yeah, now you can really take advantage of going for those Max Darkness for these next few turns if you want to decide to go for those stat drops and maybe take advantage of things that way. But you've also got the potential to get a Berserk activation here on the Moltres that we've seen do in previous games, and if that happens, then you don't have the, like you say, the haze to remove that anymore. The Dusclops and the speed control element from Wolfe's side of the field have been removed.
Well, Wolfe has got his Tapu Fini and the Regieleki out on the field. We can actually see all four of his Pokemon here. There is not a Glastria to be found. Tapu Fini, of course, could be in a position where it maybe wants to go for something like a Calm Mind, start boosting up its own special defenses. Of course, behind the light screen as well that Wolfe's Regieleki set up previously, it can be in a relatively safe position to do so. And then being at obviously +1 as well with its special attack, it can start threatening some pressure against the rest of Donald's team. But light screen coming out from the Grimmsnarl as well, kind of playing Wolfe at his own game here, knowing there's a special attack on the opposing side of the field. Moltres is going to go for the Max Darkness once again into the Regieleki that is actually able to survive. Special defenses will be dropping though on Wolfe's side of the field, so that's something he needs to be able to calculate, making sure that he is going to be able to survive any of these special attack moves coming his way. Tapu Fini go for that Moonblast, however, going to connect into the Grimmsnarl, do a huge chunk of damage, but not enough to pick up the KO.
No, not quite enough, but we do see the double up into the Grimmsnarl here to remove that support option for Donald from the field. And I think it does come back to maybe not wanting to attack into that Moltres, especially when it's in its Dynamax form, in case there is a weakness policy there, because like I say, if you do activate that, then things will get very difficult very quickly, especially in its Dynamax form. And even if you've got things like Regieleki out on the field, Galarian Moltres is so special defensively bulky. It's not going to be worried about taking a Volt Switch potentially from something like Regieleki, especially behind a light screen that we've just seen set up.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been so risky there for Wolfe. You saw that the Grimmsnarl only survived at about 5 HP. If that Moonblast had been able to connect, obviously the Volt Switch would have redirected into the Moltres and then potentially activated that weakness policy. So, in a way, very lucky for Wolfe that the Grimmsnarl was able to survive. There is, however, now a Glastria out on the field for Donald.
Yeah, and we still have... Wolfe still has access to his Dynamax turn, so Donald's has ended. He's got some good returns on them. He's got decent damage off, and he's disrupted Wolfe enough. But now it's going to be Wolfe's turn, and it's going to be back back onto Donald to see how well he can manage these Dynamax turns from what is going to be Dynamax Kartana coming out here from Wolfe side of the field.
Yeah, Wolfe once again going for that kind of later game at Dynamax, and having that Kartana on the field, this is something that's certainly a formidable Pokemon. It can apply a lot of pressure to something like that Glastria as well. Maybe trying to get something like a Max Knuckle off to be able to boost up the attack stat even further. Glastria sitting a little bit vulnerable with its special defense and defense weakened as well from the close combat. Moltres, however, now that it's not Dynamax, can go for those status moves once again and wants to boost right back up with a nasty plot that it doesn't have to worry about a potential Dusclops coming in with Haze. Glastria is actually going to be targeted down by the Moonblast of that Tapu Fini, and Glastria takes a special attack drop, which I don't think it's going to worry about too much. The Tapu Fini, I'm sure, will be proud of itself. Max Steel Spike being the move followed up from the Kartana into Glastria, manages to get the KO, boosting the defenses up on Wolf's side of the field, and of course getting that beast boost up onto the Kartana, going to be putting it at a +1 attack.
Yeah, really nice play there to get rid of the Glastria quite quickly, because in the Trick Room environment, it's not something you really want to have to be dealing with, even when it's not got the potential to Dynamax. You can see with the Life Orb how much damage it's doing, and now the big threat comes onto the field here from Donald as he is bringing that Dusclops. It was so effective for him in game 1. Next to that, Moltres is just powered up with what we saw in a nasty plot.
Yeah, exactly. Moltres once again looking really quite formidable on the field, and that's something that Wolfe has to be really cautious of. Can go for those flying type moves into the Kartana and deal a huge chunk of damage. Dusclops, however, still in this Trick Room environment, very happy to be going for that Nightshade, weakening the Kartana even further. Tapu Fini going for that Moonblast, however, going to, of course, target down the Moltres, deal good damage. The dark typing on that Moltres is going to be difficult. Will, however, activate up the weakness policy, so special attack and attack boosting right up, and as well activate the Berserk ability on Moltres, and special attack really is sky high. I think it's at +4 now, going for that Fiery Wrath, picks up the KO against the Kartana, goes into Tapu Fini. Of course, it's not going to be super effective against Tapu Fini, and there are some boosts up on Wolf's side of the field, but if Wolfe is unable to remove this Moltres from play, it's going to be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, the thing is with the Moltres now, it's in a little bit of an awkward spot, because it's obviously threatened under Trick Room from the Tapu Fini that outspeeds it in Trick Room, and then outside of Trick Room the Regieleki's there and will pressure the knockout here with any sort of electric type attack that could come out. So maybe if you're Donald, you utilize Dusclops here to pick up the knockout onto the Regieleki and then deal with the Tapu Fini after that's gone down.
Yeah, I think if you're Donald, like you said, you have to be very aware of the speed tiers and who moves after who. So going for the Protect there onto the Moltres, just saving it from that Regieleki, I think was very wise. It allows Dusclops the ability to go for that Nightshade, target down the Regieleki, remove it from the field so that Moltres can be the faster going into this next turn. Of course, Tapu Fini still looking relatively healthy at this stage, but something like the Dusclops taking away that 50 HP, the Moltres being able to deal some good damage as well at +4. I don't know if there's a lot that Tapu Fini can really do to take down these Pokemon. Dusclops so bulky, and you can see how much it took from that Moonblast. It's going to be able to take a couple more of those while still always doing 50 HP damage with those Nightshades.
Yeah, and we see the Moonblast come out here before that Moltres now. We're not going to allow it to get an attack off before it does go down, unfortunately, but then it comes down to an end game with the Dusclops again, as, Donald making that great decision to get the Trick Room up once again. So he's he's got the speed advantage going into the last few turns of this game, or the really crucial part of this game. But Tapu Fini still not out of the, it's still got access to maybe boosting. It's got access to things like Muddy Water, Moonblast that it can take advantage of, so it's not over yet. And Tapu Fini, not one of the top used Pokemon for no reason here. It's just whether or not you can manage the Dusclops well enough in these Trick Room turns and make the most of them. Well,
Dusclops going for the first Nightshade here. Tapu Fini going to go for that Moonblast, targeting back into it. Takes it below 50% damage. Reflect is wearing off as well, but we don't have to worry about that too much with the Pokemon that are still on the field. You can see Donald just locking straight away into that Nightshade once again, targeting down straight into that Tapu Fini. It is going to be enough, though, to be able to pick up the KO. Not able to hang on by a couple of HP, and Donald is able to close out this game. He will be advancing into the Global Final.